All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are taking a deep dive into an emotion that, let's be honest, most of us spend a massive amount of energy just trying to eliminate, medicate, or wish away. But stick with me, because by the time we wrap up here, we're going to fundamentally change how you view your own anxiety.
I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and you feel absolutely no fear. None. Zero worry. Zero anxiety. Just poof, it's gone. Take a second and really picture that. At first glance, that sounds like the absolute perfect life, doesn't it? A completely stress-free existence where literally nothing bothers you.
But, well, here's the shocking truth right out of the gate. If you actually woke up with zero fear, you probably wouldn't have survived very long, and neither would your ancestors. The crazy thing is, this very emotion that we spend so much time battling, it might actually be one of evolution's most genius, life-saving inventions.
Let's transport ourselves back, say, 50,000 years. Picture this. You're walking through a really dense, primitive forest. The sun's setting. Suddenly, you hear this sharp, rustling sound in the bushes right next to you. Now, sure, it might just be the wind, but it could also be a saber-toothed cat. The early human who just shrugged and ignored that sound completely, they took a massive, fatal risk. But the person who paused, got intensely alert, and prepared to bolt, yeah, they survived to pass on their genes.
And that brilliantly illustrates the absolute foundation of anxiety. At its core, anxiety is really just your brain's ancient alarm system. It's in there screaming, hey, something might be wrong, pay attention. In a highly dangerous, totally unpredictable environment, this hyper-alert state was a critical, absolute game-changer of an invention that drastically increased human survival.
Okay, let's dive into this idea of the prediction engine. Because what really is anxiety? Well, it's essentially your brain acting as this non-stop, super-powered prediction machine. It's not just looking at what's happening right now, it's constantly anticipating what could happen next, trying to prepare you for danger way before it even arrives. It is an incredible piece of biological machinery. But, yeah, there's a catch. Today, this amazing prediction engine has a really strong tendency to vastly overestimate risk.
And that overestimation leads us right to the brain's famous what-ifs. You know the drill. Your brain just starts spiraling. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if literally everything just goes entirely wrong? And the thing is, your brain isn't actively trying to make you miserable by bringing all this up. It genuinely, truly thinks it's helping you prepare for the worst. Unfortunately, that preparation easily becomes completely excessive because the brain is just running these worst-case scenarios on an endless loop.
So we've got this massive mismatch between our ancient biology and our modern world. Back in the day, the threat was a literal predator hiding in the forest. Today, the threat is giving a PowerPoint presentation, taking a final exam, or heaven forbid, hitting reply all on a high-stakes corporate email. The problem is, our body still reacts to these totally psychological office tasks with the exact same survival machinery that was meant for escaping mortal physical danger. Which brings us right to the physical stress response. When your brain senses one of those modern threats, like, say, that terrifying email, it slams the alarm button. Your heart beats faster, your breathing gets shallow, your muscles tense up, ready to sprint for your life. And hey, these reactions are incredibly useful if you actually need to physically outrun a bear. But when you're just sitting there in a swivel chair at your desk, this physical response has absolutely nowhere to go, which makes anxiety feel incredibly overwhelming in our everyday lives.
So a big question is, how do we distinguish between what's useful and what isn't? Because believe it or not, a small amount of anxiety is actually a great thing. It acts like a performance enhancer. It sharpens your focus. Feeling a little nervous before an exam, that motivates you to study. Getting nerves before a big speech pushes you to practice. But when that anxiety crosses the line into being constant, incredibly intense, and starts actually interfering with your daily life, basically when it stops protecting you and begins limiting you, that's when it transitions into unhelpful territory. And honestly, that is absolutely the right time to seek some professional help.
Now, you might also be wondering, why does the bad stuff seem to stick with us so much longer than the good stuff? Well, simply put, the brain remembers fear to prevent future mistakes. Have you ever noticed that a super embarrassing or uncomfortable memory will stick around in your head far longer than a perfectly ordinary happy one? That is not an accident. From an evolutionary perspective, remembering danger was vital. If touching a certain plant made one of our ancestors violently sick, remembering that terrifying experience with crystal clarity literally kept them alive. Today, that same system just makes our uncomfortable memories feel so much heavier and stronger than the positive ones.
So how do we actually handle this well-meaning, totally overprotective brain of ours? First off, you don't have to eliminate anxiety completely.
In fact, trying to never feel anxious is totally unrealistic. Instead, I want you to pause. The next time you feel that panic rising, just stop and ask yourself a simple question. Is this a real danger, or is this just a prediction? Literally just asking that one question creates this tiny, powerful buffer of logic between you and your ancient survival instincts. All right, let's move to our main focus for today's explainer, immediate practical application. When the modern world triggers your ancient fears, here is exactly how you take back control in real time. First, breathe. And I don't just mean a quick, frustrated sigh. Take slow, deliberate breaths. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6. This physically signals to your nervous system that you are not actively being chased. Second, focus on the facts. Pull yourself out of those swirling what-ifs and list 3 things you know for absolute certain in this exact moment. And third, break the challenge down. If an entire project feels like a massive predator, just focus on the very first, smallest step, like literally just opening a blank document. Apply these 3 steps immediately when you feel overwhelmed, and you will literally short-circuit that ancient alarm system.
And the beautiful part of all this is, by actually doing those steps, by breathing, sticking to the facts, taking tiny actions, you're teaching your brain a brand new lesson. You physically prove to your nervous system that you are safe. Every single time you do this, you slowly update and recalibrate your brain's internal prediction engine over time. It's almost like a software update for your mind.
So, the crucial point is this. The biggest mistake people make is believing anxiety means something is fundamentally wrong with them. I really want you to take that to heart. The goal here is not to entirely erase your anxiety. The goal is to understand that your brain is doing exactly what millions of years of evolution designed it to do. Once you get that, you become so much better at deciding when to actually listen to the alarm and when to just acknowledge it and move forward anyway.
To wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Next time your brain sounds the alarm, ask yourself, what is it trying to protect you from? Sometimes the answer will genuinely help you prepare for a real challenge. Other times, it'll reveal that the threat exists entirely in your imagination. Learning the difference between the two is one of the most valuable skills you can possibly develop. Once you truly understand your amazing ancient mind, you can finally stop fearing it and start using it to your ultimate advantage. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.